But there are, as I say, lots of stories in the news that are of great concern to me, and I'm sure they are to you. And, over the weekend, it is the memeology, the meme sphere blew up. It just became epic and awesome. I mean, pictures of open carry nuns with their rosaries just dangling from their side. This, radicals. So pull out your rosary and hold it high. If you're driving right now, roll down the window and stick the rosary outside the window as you scream down the highway at 90 miles an hour. Let the world know that you are a rosary radical. What does this all mean? My rosary actually has bullets, to be honest with you. They're 9mm shell casings. And I take this to the airport and it gets looked at very suspiciously. I've had it pulled off to the side and they look, what is this? Why is this? Well, let's get into it. There was a story out of the Atlantic that caught the ire of Catholics all over the world, and rightly so. The headline, as of right now, says how extremist gun culture is trying to co-opt the rosary. However, that was not the original article. That was not the original headline. The original headline said how the rosary became an extremist symbol. So they, right out of the gate, were going straight after Catholics who prayed the rosary. So here's this article out of the Atlantic by Daniel Peniton out of Toronto, Canada. Just as the AR-15 rifle has become a sacred object for Christian nationalists in general, the rosary has acquired a militaristic meaning for radical traditional, or radtrads, Catholics. On this extremist fringe, rosary beads have been woven into a conspiratorial politics and absolutist gun culture. These armed radical traditionalists have taken up a spiritual notion that the rosary can be a weapon in the fight against evil and turned into something dangerously literal. Well, right out of the gate, this guy clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, anybody who says the AR-15 has become a sacred object is really insulting to the AK-47 crowd, okay? Because these are diametrically opposed categories. People who love AK-47s do not love AR-15s, and vice versa. So, and forget about the FAL. Hello, there's a whole subculture of FAL lovers out there too. So he doesn't even understand gun culture, let alone Catholics, the rosary, and rad trads. The article goes on to say, nonetheless, their social media pages are saturated with images of rosaries draped over firearms, warriors in prayer, Deus Vult, God wills it, crusader memes, and exhortations for men to rise up and become church militants. Influencers on platforms such as Instagram share posts referencing everyday carry. Okay, I'm guilty. I kind of did that too because it's cool and fun. And GAT check. GAT is slang for firearm. That includes soldier, battle beads, handguns, and assault rifles. One artist posts illustrations of his favorite Catholic saints, clergy, and influencers toting AR-15 style rifles labeled Sanctum Rosarium, alongside violently homophobic screeds that are celebrated by social media accounts with thousands of followers. Interesting. The theologian and historian Massimo Fagioli has described a network of conservative Catholic bloggers and commentary organizations as, quote, Catholic cyber militia, close quote, that actively campaigns against LGBTQ acceptance in the church. Well, because homosexual acts are intrinsically evil according to church teaching. So we would oppose anybody who would want to commit a mortal sin that would endanger their own salvation, let alone the health and physical well-being of others. I mean, hello, we have charity. The article goes on to say, these rad-trad rosary as weapon memes represent a social media diffusion of such messaging, and they work to integrate ultra-conservative Catholicism with other aspects of online far-right culture. The phenomenon might be tempted to dismiss as mere trolling and merchandising and ironical provocations based on traditional Catholic symbols do exist, but their far right's constellations of violent, racist and homophobic online milieus are well documented for providing a pathway to radicalization and real-world terrorist attacks. Because, you know, the stories are replete in the headlines about people using their rosaries to physically harm people, right? Like, I mean, they're just everywhere, of rosary attacks where people have been beaten or harmed physically with a rosary. I mean, just today there was, like, let's see, no headlines, but I'm sure they're there. Nonetheless, just don't fact check it. Just keep going with it. The article goes on to say at The Atlantic, the rosary in these hands is anything but holy. But for millions of believers, the beads, which provide an aid memoir for sequence of devotional prayers, are a widely recognized symbol of Catholicism and a source of strength. And many take genuine sustenance from Catholic theology's concept of the church militant and the tradition of regarding the rosary as a weapon against Satan. As Pope Francis said in a 2020 address, quote, there is no path to holiness without spiritual combat, close quote. And Francis is only one of many church officials who have endorsed the idea of the rosary as armament in that fight. In mainstream Catholicism, the rosary as weapon is not an intrinsically harmful interpretation of the sacramental. And this symbolism has a long history. In the 1930s and 40s, the ultramontane Catholic student publication regularly used the concept to rally the faithful. But the modern radical traditionalist Catholic movement, which generally rejects the Second Vatican Council reforms, yeah, of course they do. All of them, right? Is far outside the majority opinion in the Roman Catholic Church in America. Many prominent American Catholic bishops advocate for gun control, and after the Uvalde school shooting, Bishop Daniel Flores of Brownsville, Texas, lamented the way some Americans sacralize death's instruments, close quote. Now, what's interesting is this author who calls Catholics rad trads for praying the rosary and or espousing the rosary as a spiritual weapon, quoting Pope Francis as well as sort of a guy who endorses this idea, and the same breath also has issues with Catholics who don't, I guess, toe the line for Vatican II, hook, line, and sinker. That's kind of an interesting twist there, don't you think? From a guy who hates Catholics, who oppose LGBTQ, but expects them, on the other hand, to embrace every iota of Vatican II. It's like, it's bizarre. It's just weird. But I wonder how many Catholics have caught that little tidbit there. The article goes on to say, the militia culture, a fetishism of Western civilization, and masculinist anxieties have become mainstays of the far right in the U.S., and rad-trad Catholics have now taken up residence in this company. Their social media accounts commonly promote accelerationist, I can't even speak today.
Accelerationist.
Thank you. Accelerationist. That's a fancy little word. Accelerationist and survivalist content. Because, you know, learning how to start a fire in the wilderness must be evil. Bad. Bad things. Bad things.
Joe, if you had to guess, what is this guy's job?
To write against the Catholic Church.
He's a museum worker. Which you can tell by the way he writes.
Along with combat, medical, and tactical training, as well as memes depicting balaclava-clad gunmen, think Navy SEALs in the dark kind of thing, gunmen that draw on the terror wave and warcore aesthetic that is popular in far-right circles. Like such networks, radical traditionalist Catholics sustain their own cottage industry of goods and services that reinforce the radicalization. Rosaries are common among the merchandise on offer, some made of cartridge casings. Guilty. Mine is 9mm shells in mine for sure. Praise be to God. And complete with gunmetal finish crucifixes. Mine, I don't think it has a gunmetal. I wish it did, actually. It would probably hold up a little better. One Catholic online store, which describes itself as dedicated to offering battle-ready products and manuals to stand firm against the tactics of the devil, a New Testament reference, by the way, sells replicas of rosaries issued to American soldiers during the First World War as combat rosaries. Discerning consumers can also buy a concealed carry permit for their combat rosary and sacramental storage box resembling an ammunition can. I'm more into the constitutional carry. I don't need some permit issued by the government to tell me I can open carry my spiritual weapon, after all. In 2016, the Pontifical Swiss Guard accepted a donation of combat rosaries. That means they're a bunch of radicals too. And they're protecting the Pope, for crying out loud. Anyway, going on. During a ceremony at the Vatican, their commander described the gift as the, quote, most powerful weapon that exists on the market, close quote. See, told you, even the army of the Vatican City agrees that this is a weapon. The militarism also glorifies a warrior mentality and notions of manliness and male strength. The conflation of the masculine and the military is rooted in wider anxieties about Catholic manhood. The idea that it is in crisis has some currency among senior church figures and lay organizations. In 2015, Bishop Thomas Olmsted of Phoenix issued an apostolic exhortation calling for a renewal of traditional conceptions of Catholic masculinity entitled Into the Breach, which led the Knights of Columbus, an influential fraternal order, to produce a video series promoting Olmsted's ideas. But among radical traditional Catholic men, such concerns take an extremist turn, rooted in fantasies of violently defending one's family and church from marauders. The article does go on, but we're almost out of time here. And I encourage you to read the shenanigans involved in poor Daniel's little lament against Catholics who pray the rosary. And guess what? It is not radical, trad Catholics and their rosaries that concern me. No, no, no. It's the silent types, the grandmas kneeling in the pew, fingering their beads over and over again. It's the silent ones you have to really watch out for. Catholic radicals, traditionalists, praying their rosary to conquer the world, the flesh, and the devil, because it is not the flesh that we contend, but the powers and the principalities. Put on the armor of God, as St. Paul would say. And Our Lady, who commanded us to pray this rosary every single day. Let's defeat the devil today. Pray your rosary.